We have arrived to NFL Wildcard Weekend. The playoffs are finally here. We've been looking forward to this all year. So while the regular season is officially over and we're sad, we get the playoffs to look forward to, and we're thus happy all over again. So for those of you who do not know us, we are Statletics. We love talking through some of the bigger games of the slate, and of course, it is Wildcard Weekend, so all of them are big games. So we have a couple games on Saturday, Sunday, and then of course Monday as well. So we're going to go in sequential order. We really lean on our analytical projections to kind of discern what we think is going to happen in these games, and the stats that go into that. So if you like that kind of stuff, this is the show for you. At the end of the day, we're just two dudes who love talking ball. So Beach, how we doing, man?
Harrison, what's up, brother? It's great to be here.
It's
a great time to be alive. It's a great time to be alive. This is one of the most exciting weekends of the whole year. I've successfully not gambled in like 2 weeks. About to break it again. There's an ambulance behind me. Just
did you call it in? You called it in?
Yeah, I did. Called in.
Yeah.
Anyway,
I know, right? It's so for those of you who just love ball in general, I mean, we have the college football playoffs on Thursday and Friday, and then on Saturday, Sunday, and Monday, we get NFL playoff football. So legit does not get any better than this. There's a lot to be excited about. I've officially planned my whole week and weekend around the game. So really looking forward to it, really excited about it. So nonetheless, we're going to dive right into it. Beach, Steelers travel to the Ravens, play the red hot Ravens, man. You have a team that's really declined, especially in the last 4 weeks, playing against a team that's really amped it up over the last 4 weeks. I mean, the Steelers and the Ravens, this will be their third matchup against each other. Of course, it's a divisional rivalry. The Steelers, like I mentioned, they've lost the past 4 games in a row, and the Ravens have really only kicked it up, man. They look like they're truly a legit Super Bowl contender. Even though they're playing in a wild card game, they look like a team that could easily have the number 1 overall bye. So, again, third matchup. The first matchup, the Steelers actually got the win. The second matchup, the Ravens boat raced this Steelers team. So again, the spread is 9.5 points by the Ravens. It's kind of lopsided, to be fair. And so with what we've seen out of the Steelers and how they've declined, especially offensively speaking, and then what we've seen out of the Ravens and how their offense has only gotten better, which is crazy to think because they were already a top 3 offense in the league. But their defense has picked it up as well. You know, they're a top team in defending the run. They've really struggled on the passing game. They still have a few of those struggles, but they've certainly gotten better and more efficient on the defensive side of the ball. So hence why the number is so big here. BJ, before I get into the numbers and the model picks, this game, Mike Tomlin, he hasn't won a playoff game in 8 years. 8 years. So we're peddling mediocrity here. So I know the Steelers are your team. So before we get into anything, I wanted to ask you, if Mike Tomlin loses this game, do we start having to ask questions about his job? Are we concerned about his ability to coach a football team, or no concerns at all? Are you still riding with Mike Tomlin?
Yeah. It's interesting because the record for him is making the playoffs every year, right? But if you make the playoffs every year, it doesn't matter if you lose in the first round. I don't think that Mike Tomlin per se is the problem. I mean, if you kind of look back the last couple of years, I mean, after prime Ben Roethlisberger, there really hasn't been a great quarterback there, and they've got the defense is always there. But I say you keep. Personally.
I mean, yes. The questions are going to start flowing, especially if they lose this game. Now, to your point, I do think this is an overachieving team, all things considered.
Oh, yeah.
While they've struggled the past 4 games, let's look at the games that they've lost. The past 4 weeks, they lost to a red-hot Cincinnati team. They lost to a Kansas City team who has the number 1, or who has the 1 seed and the bye this week. They lost to Baltimore 3 weeks ago, playing at Baltimore. And then they lost to Philly in Philly. So, I mean, it's like, come on. Let's cut a little bit of slack. I don't want to cut too much slack because the decline of Russ has really been prevalent whenever you're watching these games. So that brings me to my next question, BJ. This Ravens defense is pretty solid. They, their pass rush is their key component of their defense. They're 5th in sacks per game. They showed a lot of vulnerability against the run. They're 17th in EPA per rush, 18th in rushing success rate. That's a statistic that's declined since week 11, potentially giving Henry the advantage. But their defense, it's not a strong suit like it used to be, but it's certainly not their weak point. Their weak point is we're going to turn it to the offense. George Pickens is dropping balls now. Russell Wilson's boom ball is no longer effective. If you're Mike Tomlin, do you install some packages and get Justin Fields out there on the field? I mean, you almost feel like you have to.
I would love that. I really would, because I'll tell you something right now. If they come out with the same game plan they've had all year, they will not win this game. 100%. Steelers cannot win this game with Pickens being a head case, them not being able to run the ball, which is what Arthur Smith's going to want to do. And who else is out there to catch balls for you? Calvin Austin? It's like my height.
Yeah.
I mean, he's a burner, but yeah, there's no way that they'll be able to keep up with the Ravens team if they have the same game plan. So yes, absolutely, Justin Fields needs to be involved. They need to really surprise the Ravens here on what they're gonna do on the offensive side in order to win this game.
And that's really why I bring that up, because just Mike Tomlin had the balls to sit Justin Fields while he went 4-2 to install Russ, and at the time, those first couple games, it looked like a genius move. I mean, Russell Wilson was hitting George Pickens on the most absurd plays we've seen in a while out of Russell Wilson. But, again, I don't want to argue against Russell Wilson too much, because the last 4 games have been kind of a gauntlet, defensively speaking, outside of the Bengals. But he hasn't looked great. And, if you want to win the big game, you got to beat the best of the best. And Russell Wilson clearly doesn't have the ability to do that. So there's going to be some creativity as a 10-point underdog on the road in the playoffs. Kind of embarrassing, truthfully speaking. And if we're going ahead and look at the numbers, I mean, our model here over at Statlytics has 25-13 in favor of the Ravens. So even larger discrepancy in that number compared to the Vegas numbers. So just throwing that out there. Again, those are statistical based projections only. Those don't take into account injuries, weather, blah, blah, blah. But still, it's noteworthy. There's a what is that? It's like a 13 point discrepancy in the model, and then a 10-point spread in Miami. That's something to note. That's, playoff games don't really typically have that big of spread. And so you got to get creative if you're the Steelers here. Arthur Smith really needs to dice it up a little bit. He needs to get the green light from Tomlin to do something with Fields, in my opinion. And this Ravens defense, man, again, their weak spot is the passing game. So I know that doesn't really, that's not Justin Fields' strong suit. But what else are you going to do? Russell Wilson's moon ball isn't working. George Pickens isn't really catching balls like he used to. So, I mean, if I'm Tomlin, I'm trying to get the moon ball going with Russ at some point in the game, take advantage of that bad secondary. But again, the best approach here is do something different, do something that maybe the Ravens aren't necessarily expecting. And if you can generate some running game with Justin Fields at the helm, he's not a bad passer by any means. He's not great, but you can surprise him here and there as well, and potentially control the clock a little bit. Keep the ball out of Lamar Jackson's hands. I mean, it's the only viable option in my opinion. So we'll see how it works, and what kind of game plan they go into. But to me, at this point, it's just like, what else are you gonna do? You're 10-point dogs on the road to a team who arguably has the best offense in the league, and a front seven on the defensive side that is phenomenal at stopping the run. So, BJ, any more thoughts on this game? And do you think your Steelers have a hope and a prayer?
Yeah, I mean, the Steelers beat the Ravens earlier in the season, 18-16. And the only way, this hurts me to say, but really the only way the Steelers are going to win this game is if they were able to hold the Ravens to under 20 points like that. And they're not going to do that. So Lamar is playing great. King Henry's the king. And they're going to put up points, 100%. Yeah. So and normally seeing a spread this big in the playoffs, I'm just smashing like the underdog spread, but not this time, unfortunately.
Man, dude, this Ravens offense too, it's just, I can't emphasize how good it is. Number 1 in EPA per play, number 3 in overall success rate. Lamar Jackson has 4,100 yards in the air and 41 touchdowns. And then Derrick Henry, I mean, he's having a phenomenal year as well, career year. And so it's truly amazing what this offense is doing and what they're capable of doing. especially when everybody's healthy. I fully expect Zay Flowers to be green-lighted. He only had like a contusion on the knee. He just got banged up a little bit. So if the Ravens are going to be healthy and the Steelers can't do anything crazy, it's got to be the Ravens. I think this team has every potential chance to win the bowl. My bear case for the Ravens and my bull case for the Steelers would be Mike Tomlin goes in there creative and he gets both quarterbacks active and going, and then they somehow get creative and keep away from Lamar Jackson and the Ravens. But again, I just don't see it. So
me neither.
All right, man. Hey, before we move on to the next one, the show is brought to you by Not Beer, American Sparkling Water. You can find it at most local shops in the Texas area, especially around the Dallas-Fort Worth area, or you can order it on Amazon. It's never a bad time to have a Not Beer, the perfect American sparkling water. You can have it outright. You can mix it with anything. It's amazing. Had it at my wedding. Loved it. So make sure to get you some of that. Find some links in the comments for that as well. Also, drop your favorite picks in the comments, man. Let us know who you like this week, what picks we got right, what picks we got wrong. We love scanning the crowd for that information. It's always fun and entertaining nonetheless. So it's always a good read. So Texans versus Chargers. Chargers are -3. CJ Stroud versus Justin Herbert. Justin Herbert's looking for his first playoff win, believe it or not. And so we have a struggling Texans offense facing an up-and-coming Chargers team. This Chargers team, dare I say, they don't really feel like the Chargers anymore, in a good way. You have a team that's always kind of fumbled away big games or somehow lost games at the last second, giving up big leads, kind of like the Falcons to some degree. But Jim Harbaugh has come in here and installed a culture that kind of feels like they've changed a little bit. And for him to be in the spot, double-digit wins in the playoffs in his first year is huge. I really think they have a lot of good things going for him, and it's impressive what he was able to do in year one, especially with some of the talent that this offense is working with. I mean, you have Quentin Johnson out there trying to catch balls. I don't want to say catching confidently, but on the flip side, you have a Texans team, phenomenal defense, but the offense is struggling, which is not something I could say that I expected coming into this year, BJ, but it is what it is. CJ Stroud's kind of having a down year, but can't speak enough about this Houston defense, 8th overall in EPA per play, 6th overall in defensive success rate. So pretty good. There's a low scoring total on this game, 42.5 points. And our model has this game at 18.5 to 16 in favor of the Texans. So a flipped spread here compared to what Vegas has. But I must say, if I was Vegas right now and the way that the Texans offense were playing, I don't blame them having the Chargers -3 point total. So before I get into any of the numbers and any more of the matchups, BJ, gut feeling about this game. Are you confident in CJ Stroud's ability to go against a really solid Chargers defense and go in here and steal a win?
Yeah, so not really. I look at this game kind of trying to compare apples to apples here. Both defenses are great. The Chargers have the number one scoring defense in the league, which could be problematic if Stroud were to get a little loosey-goosey with turnovers. And then I come to the comparison of Herbert and Stroud. Who would I rather have? And I would rather have Herbert here, regardless of if Herbert has less weapons or not. I mean, this team could be completely different if Stephon Diggs was still there, if Tank Dell was still there, but you've lost 2 of your top 3 receivers. The running game has slowed down throughout the season for the Texans. So, I definitely think it's a low-scoring game. Should be, at least. It's a real low total. And so it's going to be kind of ugly, but I take Jim Harbaugh and Justin Herbert to prevail in this one. I like them to cover the 3.
So let me ask you something.
What?
In this game, this win, is it more important? Is it more important to CJ Stroud or is it more important to Justin Herbert? Because everybody gave CJ Stroud the crown last year. And you look at how he's kind of digressed this year, and it's like, oh man, you really feel for him because I love CJ Stroud, phenomenal dude. I wish him nothing but the best, and I actually think he's going to have a phenomenal career. And he just had a down year, and he's still young, still 22, 23 years old. But this game, Is it more important to CJ Stroud moving forward or to Justin Herbert? Because, I mean, Herbert's still looking for his first playoff win.
Yeah, I think it's got to be Herbert. I do think that both of these, strictly because I think Stroud's going to be fine.
Yeah.
He overachieved last year. And so the regression is probably pretty normal, to be honest, because of his overachievement last year. So I think he'll be fine. I think that Herbert needs this pretty bad. He should definitely. I was surprised by that. He definitely should have a playoff win by now. But next year when he gets T. Higgins, they'll be even better. So we'll just have to. They'll both continue to have good seasons the next couple years.
Yeah. I agree with you. I think this game is significantly more important to Justin Herbert because you look at everything he's done in the NFL and then in the regular season. But at the end of the day, as frustrating as it may be, everybody is only going to argue about what you've done in the postseason. Yeah, you could be the greatest regular season quarterback ever, but if you have nothing to show for it in the postseason, you're kind of just discredited a little bit. And as much as that sucks for people, especially for people who don't really watch the game, they only look at the box score and the career stats. As frustrating as it may be from people like that who don't actually watch the game tape and the games, it is what it is, man. Justin Herbert needs this, like we need air, and I think he knows that. And so I think he's going to come into this game ready to go. Now, with that being said, BJ, I like the Texans here. I actually do. In my humble opinion, this Texans offense, we've seen them bottom out pretty badly. I think that they've hit their floor, but they have yet to reach anywhere close to their ceiling. Again, I'm really taking a gamble here because obviously the Texans, they haven't really proved a whole lot as of the past couple of weeks on the offensive side of the ball, especially CJ Stroud, but I think it's there, and you look at the carousel of wide receivers that he's had to throw to. It's just a matter of him getting back in rhythm. Nico Collins has been there for a couple of weeks. I think he's finally good to go. And I mean, he's still got Dalton Schultz back there. Joe Mixon is ready to go. He's had a phenomenal year with Houston Texans. They just signed Deontay Johnson, so that could be some help. He got a couple snaps last week, so we'll see how much effect that has. But I really like the Texans to come out here and kind of prove to everybody like they still have what they have from last year into this year. And some of their numbers aren't horrible. They're not great. 22nd overall in EPA per play. Their defense is great. They're 8th overall in EPA per play allowed. And I think their defense is going to cause a lot of problems and kind of open the door for CJ Stroud to not have to do too much to win this game. As great as Justin Herbert is, as great as this Chargers offensive line is, I think they're going to need, they just need more playmakers. You can't go out there with Quentin Johnson. I mean, Ladd McConkey, phenomenal year. I think he's going to have a great career. Nothing bad about Ladd McConkey. But if he's your wide receiver one going into a game like this against a top 10 NFL defense, I'm going to question the capabilities of winning that game. Chargers are absolutely capable of winning this game. They very well might. They're favored to do so. But I just give the benefit of the doubt to the team that, in my opinion, has more talent on both sides of the football. So give me the Texans here. The Mono likes the Texans. I like the Texans. We're going to rock with it. Any rebuttals, Beach?
Yeah, I mean, low scoring game could go either way. I mean, the Chargers are 3 points on the road in the playoffs, which is kind of crazy. The Texans are the number one most penalized team in the NFL. That's my only addition to what we've talked about so far is, I've watched games where they were in prime position to win a game and they just didn't because penalties. So that could play into it as well. Even if it's not in the final seconds, throughout the game, they got 10 penalties, it's going to be really difficult to come back from that. So,
yeah. Yeah. And I mean, again, I'm not saying here with any sort of confidence that the Texans are going to go in here and smash the Chargers because they certainly will not. The Chargers have a phenomenal defense. They have a great offense, stable offense nonetheless. It's only gotten better. Look what they did to the Patriots just a few short weeks ago. J.K. Dobbins is back healthy as well, so that's huge. Top offensive line for the first time in Herbert's career. So everything bodes well for the Chargers here. It's just, looking at this, I really like the Texans defense to create chaos for Justin Herbert. And now the Chargers defense may create chaos for CJ Stroud, and that could be a whole nother issue. But I mean, it's just truly amazing what's gonna, like, to me, I love this game for the sole purpose and the sole storyline behind CJ Stroud versus Justin Herbert. So we'll see who can elevate themselves, and if the postseason brings on a different persona, different mentality for these two guys. So a lot to be excited about here. I like the Texans. BJ likes the Chargers, so consider it a beer bet.
Ooh.
Okay, BJ, Broncos travel to Buffalo and play the Bills. It sounded like you were telling me that it's going to snow on Saturday and Monday, right between these games. So maybe no snow during the game, hoping we get some. But it's certainly going to be cold, to your point, at Buffalo. Bills are 8.5-point favorites. It's a 47-point total. Broncos coming off of a, phenomenal win against the Chiefs backups, if that counts. So
does not count.
Yeah. But I mean, hey, momentum's there, confidence is there, so they're really feeling good going into this game. But the Bills are too. They sat their starters. Josh Allen got a week of rest, as well as a few other key starters as well. I mean, this Buffalo turnaround from last year, Denver turnaround from last year has been phenomenal. I think Sean Payton's doing a great job developing Bo Nix into being a legit, franchise QB for this team. And putting in double-digit wins after the season that they've had of the past 2 years is really good work. Defense, phenomenal, top 3 in almost every category, it feels like. I mean, you look at the Denver defense, they're second overall in EPA per play, they're first overall in success rate, third overall in rushing yards per game and yard per attempt, only giving up 96 rushing yards per game. Only giving up 242 passing yards per game. That's pretty solid. Fun stat for you, BJ. We kind of talked about this before the game. Bills offense gives up the least amount of sacks per game. Broncos defense generates the most sacks per game. Mm-hmm. So, immovable object versus unstoppable force. We'll see which one comes into play here, and I think that's going to be the key matchup of the game. We can talk about Bo Nix and Josh Allen all we want, but I mean, it's going to be the defenses, man. And I think the Bills' defense is also pretty strong, but they're not anything to what the Broncos are. 10th overall in EPA per play, 15th overall in success rate. So, again, I don't want to get too nitpicky here. Of course, the Bills are favored for a reason. Of course, we all probably think the Bills are going to win. I actually have it down here. BJ and I both have picked the Bills, but trying to make a bull case for the Broncos here. I think that's the key matchup here. And we talk about Bo Nix. Do you think he's comprised enough to go in here and, maybe make a splash? Maybe pin the Bills back in a wall, in a corner, put them in a bad spot, make them actually have to try? Because, it's an 8.5-point spread, so clearly Vegas doesn't really think a whole lot of this Broncos team coming in Buffalo, but I think there's a chance that they could with the defense alone. What do you think?
Yeah, Bo Nix had a great rookie season. He really has. Sean Payton has really given him the opportunity to showcase himself, and he's played very well this season. We're going against Superman here. Yeah. This is against the Bills, who haven't lost a home all year. It's gonna be cold. It's a rookie quarterback against Superman, and I think it's gonna be really difficult for the Broncos to come up here and put up much of a fight. The Bills are so well rounded, especially on the offensive side. They have like 5 different people that Josh Allen just spreads the ball out to. And then not even counting himself, their running game is very good. Mm-hmm. Help me remember, the Bills have a very poor run defense, correct? Numbers wise?
It's mid-tier, I would say.
Yeah.
16th 12th in rushing yards per game, 22nd in rushing yards per attempt per game.
Yeah. And I think that the way that teams like to kind of attack this Bills defense is on the ground, but I don't think the Broncos are going to be able to really move the needle with that. In order for the Broncos to win this game, I think that their defense is going to have to. I think they're going to have to force Josh Allen to make mistakes. I don't think they're going to be able to do that.
Sure,
the Bills are behind the bowl, baby.
Yeah, they are. I think they'll be ready to go.
They're coming ready to play.
They're desperate for a Super Bowl win. just as a franchise as a whole, but of course Josh Allen wants one too. The model projection has it as 26.5 to around 18, so right around the Vegas spread here. We talked about the strong suit of the Broncos defense, and then of course the elevation of this Broncos offense coming into this game. So I think there's a lot to be excited about with this Denver team. But if you look at the Bills, I mean, again, to your point, it's Superman and Josh Allen, and the way that they play offense makes it really hard to stop. Really, really hard to stop. They get the ball to everybody. They have 3 or 4 guys in a game who could take the rushing lead at any given moment. Josh Allen, James Cook, Ray Davis. We've even seen Ty Johnson get into the mix, especially in the passing game. So the way that they distribute the football is going to be really hard to stop for any team, much less than the Broncos. So I think that's a huge component of this game. We talk about how the Broncos attack the passer and generate the most sacks in the league. Well, again, the Bills, they give up the least amount of sacks in the league. And not to mention, not only do they have a strong offensive line, but a lot of that is in due part to Josh Allen's ability to get out of the pocket and make plays for himself. And so I just think, matchup advantage to the Bills in that facet as well. And the Bills offense, when we talk about, or the defense at least, we talk about them being a little bit mediocre, but they've been really formidable at home. Again, 4th in points allowed per game, 19.2 at home, and have been exceptionally good at creating pressure at home games as well. So I'm really excited to watch this game to see kind of how Bo Nix responds. But I think it's a really tough spot to be in, really tough place to go and try and win a football game against a Bills team who could easily win the whole thing. Offense is phenomenal. Similar to the Ravens, it just feels like there's almost no way to actually stop them. You just have to try and slow them down a little bit and hope you get a little bit lucky on the defensive side of the ball. So I like the Bills here. I think the Broncos can keep it close in the first half, but I think the Bills open the floodgates in the second half, and it's all she wrote. So, but not to say anything bad about the Broncos. Kudos to them in the year they've had. They very well could surprise everybody and maybe steal a win. Who knows? But I like the Bills in this one. Give me the Bills. I like the ride the model. I'll ride the model as well. So, any rebuttals?
No, I think that until later in the playoffs, the only people that are going to be the Bills are themselves. 100%. And I'm going to go with the only guy this season who has a passing and receiving touchdown on the same play. So I'm going to ride with.
Okay.
Which is Josh Allen.
All right.
Pretty impressive.
Okay. Packers versus Eagles. Eagles are 4.5-point favorites. Total sitting around 46.5. Kind of a weird situation between both of these teams. I mean, Jordan Love, he had a little injury last week, had like his funny bone in his hand. Fully expecting him to play, but something to note at least. And then Jalen Hurts, he's still in concussion protocol as of today. So lots of weird stuff going on. He's been out for multiple weeks now, so it's a little bit concerning that he's not out of concussion protocol at this point. He's missed a lot of practice, so that's something to note as well. But I guess we're going to approach this game just in anticipation that both quarterbacks are going to play this game. So that's how we're going to break this down. We may try and decide. I mean, I have a couple takes about whether or not Jalen Hurts plays or doesn't play, but we'll certainly get to that as well. But BJ, a little more info on that. Eagles, they waived quarterback Ian Book today. So that's a good thing looking in the lens that Jalen Hurts is probable to play, if they're getting rid of quarterbacks. Because your emergency QB has to be on the 53-man roster. So if they're getting rid of him, then I fully expect Jalen Hurts to go, even though we haven't really heard any news yet. So again, that's kind of why we're operating under that assumption. But nonetheless, these teams, they faced off at the very first week of the season, BJ. That was the Brazil game. Jordan Love actually got hurt. He hurt his groin in that game near the end, but played most of the game. So, we got a good sample size there. Eagles took the win there in a close one, but a fun one. So they finally get to rematch this week in the wild card. It is in Philly, at home for them. Packers are on the road. They did lose Christian Watson to a season-ending injury, so another injury for the Packers offense. It's unfortunate. Jair Alexander is still looking unlikely to play, so that really doesn't bode well for their defense. But no longer talking about the injury front. I think we covered our ground there. This game, man, I really love both of these teams and what they do. But to be totally honest, it feels like the Eagles have kind of found themselves lately, especially with Jalen Hurts out. Even before he was out and after he was out, it feels like the offense was doing really well. And the defense is really picking up well, especially with their young guys in the secondary, led by Cooper DeJean. So a lot to be excited about for this Philly team. But if you look over at the Packers team, they're hit or miss. And I hope that, people really understand what I'm saying there, because, one day you have a Packers team that can really open the floodgates on the offensive side of the ball. You have Jaden Reed, who is, taking handoffs for 50. So, and then Josh Jacobs, he's carrying the load. He'll have 3 touchdowns in a game, but they're hit or miss. They're kind of a roller coaster to watch. So my concern is they're not as consistent enough on the offensive side of the ball, but they certainly have every capability of blowing the game open on the offensive side of the ball, especially with Matt LaFleur calling plays. So before I get into any of the numbers and anything else, BJ, this game, assuming that both quarterbacks play at Philly, it's a really tough place to play with the Packers and how they've played. They're 0-5 against teams with 11 or more wins. Can you be confident in them going in and stealing a win, or are you still concerned? As concerned as I am.
Yeah, I think that the Eagles are definitely surging at a good time. Obviously, we have to assume Jalen Hurts is going to play in this game, and the Packers, I am concerned. I really am. Losing another weapon. It seems like all season they've kind of, their offense is kind of ridden on the back of their run game with Josh Jacobs, and the Eagles have a really good defensive front. The Eagles are at home. The Eagles are multi-dimensional on offense that can really, put up points, especially, Jair Alexander isn't there. They're healthy, which the Packers are not. I would be very worried if I was a Packers fan here.
Mm-hmm.
The Eagles are aligned a lot better to take this win than the Packers are.
Yeah, I will say this too, because if you're the Eagles and say Jalen Hurts hasn't practiced much or he doesn't play at all for some reason, you would fully expect them to go full-blown Saquon in this game. Saquon's been phenomenal. He can break the game open, even against stacked boxes. But the Green Bay defense, they have been promising on that front, guarding against the running game. 7th overall in rushing yards per game allowed, 4th overall in rushing yards per attempt allowed. So that speaks something. This defense is also very much improved over the past 6 weeks or so. 4th overall in EPA per play. So I think that their defense, we don't really talk about Green Bay's defense that much because their offense, usually is the one that's really stealing the spotlight here. But their defense has still been efficient, especially in the run game. So if I'm a Packers fan, or if I'm trying to make an argument for the Packers to win this game, that's certainly something that I'm circling. Because, if you look at this Philly team, they've really leaned into the rushing game. They're just now getting their passing game going. And so that's something to be excited about if I'm a Packers guy. But again, it's going to be tough going into Philly. This team is only getting better. You have Devontae Smith healthy. You have A.J. Brown healthy. And then if Saquon's doing all sorts of Saquon things, Goddard's healthy. And then this offensive line, man, we don't talk about this enough. They're top 3 offensive line, even without Jason Kelce. And it's just going to be hard to stop that game. But if I'm the Packers, my sole number one focus, or number one priority, I would say, not number one focus, would be just stopping Saquon, trying to force this pass game. We've seen this pass game have a lot of success. So it's like, we talk about this offense. It's like, how do you stop them? There's really no way to stop them. But if I were to be a gambling man and I were playing the Eagles, what I'm not going to do is let Saquon go crazy. Sure. Try and beat me deep. If throw some 50-50 balls to A.J. Brown and Devontae Smith, while they're probably more 60-40, 70-30 balls for A.J. Brown, still, that's better percentage chance than letting Saquon run wild on your defense against the light box. Trust that number 1 running game, or top 10 running game, or running defense at least, and then see what you can do in the passing games. Yeah, I think this one's going to be all Eagles in my opinion. I think the Packers certainly bode well in a game like this, just due to their coaching and the fact that they've been here. Last year, we saw them get hot, and they almost went the distance to the big dance. But they just lost to the 49ers. But maybe they get hot, maybe they don't. It's just it kind of feels like they've lost some key parts at the worst times heading into the playoffs. So
100%.
Give me the Eagles here. I think that's one of my better picks of the week. I'm really confident, no matter who plays quarterback, in my opinion. The Eagles are going to get this win. Their team is just built so well. I mean, even their defense is playing lights out. Third overall EPA per play, second overall in success rate, playing phenomenal against the pass. They're only giving up 192 yards in the air and 5.5 yards per attempt. So that's all Eagles for me, man. I've made my bull case for the Packers, but it's really the Eagles for me, man. What do you think?
Yeah. I think that if Hurts is out and the spread moves, if you are a gambling man or woman, put even more on the Eagles. I mean, if Hurts is out, I mean, it's only 4.5 right now. It could move to nearly pick them. Just saying. Yeah, I like the Eagles.
Okay. Yeah, we're right there. And just to note, model also 66% chance to win compared to Packers 34% chance to win. That actually, that's right around the -5, -5.5 compared to what I've seen. Our model projection, it's on the screen, but I will say disclaimer, it's assuming that Tanner McKee plays and not Jordan Love plays. So if you're watching this and you still see 14-12, I'm going to change it because it's assuming both backup QBs play. But yeah, I wanted to have it just so everybody could see. So okay, underrated wildcard matchup right here.
It's the best matchup.
Underrated matchup right here. We get Jaden Daniels versus Baker Mayfield. Commanders travel to Tampa Bay to play the Bucs. The Bucs came off a little shaky last week. Barely squeaked out a win against the Saints. And then, of course, the Commanders' backups, or some of their backups, ended up beating Cowboys. So, nonetheless, we get Jaden Daniels and Baker Mayfield. A lot to be excited about. This is the highest point total game on the slate, 50.5. So, Vegas sees some points, and I kind of agree with them, even though the model doesn't. So we'll talk about that here in a little bit. Bucs -3, home favorites. I think that's an appropriate line here. If we look at the win percentage, the model has a 59% win percentage compared to 41% for the Commanders. So take that as you will. Just wanted to throw that out there. BJ. We get Jaden Daniels, rookie quarterback, phenomenal year, traveling to Tampa Bay. Tampa Bay's defense started the year off really, really gross. And all of a sudden, they've gotten relevant again.
Yep.
15th overall EPA per play, 25th overall success rate. If you looked at those numbers at the beginning of the year, those were both in the late 20s, some even in the 30s. So just wanted to throw that out there. We've seen improvement. While they can be exploited, they're not a great defense. The numbers show that. But they're certainly a lot better than they were to the season. Washington defense is a big struggle as well. 20th overall EPA per play, 19th overall success rate. They really hemorrhage yards in the rushing game. I just want to throw that out there as well. But looking at the model here, 22.5 to 16. So I will say my model is saying a little bit lower scoring game. While I disagree with that, that's just what the analytics say. Beej, I know we both think this is going to be fireworks. We're both really excited about this game. And your opinion,
we do.
I want to get your take here. You got Jaden Daniels versus Baker Mayfield, and I think that we're both on the Bucs winning this game.
Yeah.
But we don't think it's going to be anything short of exciting. We don't think it's going to be anything, any sort of blowout by any means. We think it's going to come down to the last minute. Again, two great quarterbacks going head-to-head. Marshawn Lattimore gets one last crack at Mike Evans. So It's destiny. It's destiny.
This is so good.
So just your general takes on this game as well. But again, you picked the Bucs here. I'm also on the Bucs, but I'll elaborate a little bit more and also give a bull case for the Commanders. But your take on the Bucs here, man. Why do you think they win this game?
Yeah, I've been thinking this past couple of weeks, but seriously, you should be worried if you play the Bake Show in the playoffs. I'm telling you, like the Bucs and Baker Mayfield led team, they've got some dudes on this team. McMillan has had to come onto the scene in the absence of Godwin, who got hurt. Mike Evans is Mike Evans. Bucky Irving is that dude. He is so I don't really know how to describe him or compare him to.
Electric.
But
He's
he's
absolutely electric.
so elusive and electric. And from what you said about the Commanders, hemorrhaging is I think the word you used.
Yep.
Yards on the ground. They're going to hemorrhage some more because even if Irving isn't in there, you got Rashad White can do the same thing. You got Sean Tucker can do the same thing. Baker sometimes takes off and then like taunts the defender who tackles him. It's amazing. I really think that the Bucs could put up over 30 points here. Like seriously.
Yeah.
I really think so. They've been an offensive masterclass with Lee and Cohen calling plays, and they're going against a rookie quarterback again with not a lot of weapons. Now, Jane Daniels has exceeded expectations extremely. He's had an amazing season.
Yeah.
But he's still a rookie quarterback going on the road in the playoffs in the NFL against an offense that is extremely electric. So that's why my biggest take. I know I've talked mostly about the Bucs there, but this team is sick.
To your point, man, the Bucs, no matter who they've played, have put up points. You know, Baker Mayfield, kudos to him, phenomenal year. I can't, I will admit, shame on me. 3 years ago, I was down on Baker Mayfield. I thought he shouldn't be playing in the league, and look at him. He's been a top 5 quarterback, and you can't really argue against that. So we look at both of these offenses, and they've both been top 5 offenses, especially statistically speaking. When we look at Tampa Bay, they're 4th overall in EPA per play, 2nd overall in success rate. Pivot over to the Washington offense, they're 5th overall in EPA per play, 4th overall in offensive success rate. I mean, truly amazing what both of these teams have been doing. They have 2 really, really solid running backs and 2 elite quarterbacks, and it's going to be fireworks in my opinion. It may not reach the total, but I still think we're going to see some plays in this game where everybody's like, holy shit, I can't believe that happened. We look at the Tampa Bay offense. I mean, Mike Evans, he's a dude. Of course, Hall of Famer. Jalen McMillan has really come onto the scene. Cade Otton has been a safety blanket for Baker. So, I mean, and again, to your point, Bucky Irving is absolutely dynamic in the rushing game and the passing game. So it's going to be really hard to stop that offense. You pivot over to the Commanders offense as well, and they have guys like that. Jaden Daniels, of course, rookie of the year, without a doubt. Then you have guys like Brian Robinson, who's really had a, honestly, what's called a career year for Brian Robinson. And in retrospect, I know he's been dealing with some injuries, but he should be good to go. Austin Eckler as well should be good to go. Terry McLaurin, he's had the best season in terms of receiving touchdowns in Commanders franchise history. So there's no play, like these teams, they're not short of playmakers. They absolutely have playmakers, and they absolutely have the ability to score at will. So the key matchups here are going to be the defenses, which defenses can step up. And so I mentioned how Tampa Bay's defense has gotten a little bit better. And while Washington's defense, they've hemorrhaged a lot of yards, especially in the running ground, in the running game, they've also progressively gotten a little bit better. It's a bit more marginal, but I don't want to speak about them like they haven't shown progress. Okay. If we looked at some of their metrics, 20th overall in EPA per play, 19th overall in success rate, that used to be in the high 20s. The first 4 or 5 weeks of the game of the year, those were very high. So they've gotten those numbers to come back down. But again, still their defense is a concern of mine, especially going against Baker Mayfield. But to me, it's going to be about the trenches in this one. Which teams can establish a running game? Because we know both quarterbacks are going to have their way. And so advantage to Jane Daniels because he's got the legs to be able to create plays in the rushing game as well. So I think that's going to be a huge component of this game. I don't want to be the guy who's like, oh, Jaden Daniels, he's going to run the football and blah, 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 Russian quarterback. Because I think he's got one of the best arms in the league, man. One of the best deep ball throwers in the league. Mm-hmm. So don't twist my words up. Don't get a mistake. And he's a phenomenal passer. We've seen that in his connection with Terry McLaurin. But I think if you're making a case for the Commanders here, I think they do have a bit of an advantage because Jane Daniels can create some explosive plays in the run game. He's got breakaway speed, and so that's really hard to defend for the Bucs here. And I think that gives them a little bit of an advantage in that degree. But I like the Bucs here, man. I think at home, I think Baker Mayfield's going to show out. This defense is going to have a slight step above compared to Commanders defense. Give me the Bucs to take this one home. I think they're going to be a surprising team in the playoffs this year. Just throwing that out there.
Who would they play? Who does the winner of this game play? You have it pulled up? I would love to see that.
NFL playoff bracket. So, looking at this, the winner would move on to play the winner of the Rams and the Vikings. So, and I mean, of course, I say that, but it's all about seeding. So,
right. Oh, right, right. That's right.
The Lions would get the lowest seed, and then whoever wins the Rams and the Vikings would get the higher seed, I guess. So,
fire.
Yeah, it's gonna be some electric stuff. We saw what happened when Tampa Bay played the Lions last year. I mean, it could be fun.
It will be fun.
But I mean, the Bucs are a third seed, so I don't expect that happening.
Cool.
Not unless they make it to the conference championship game. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Speaking of the Vikings and the Rams, BJ.
Here we go.
Here we go. Sean McVay versus Kevin O'Connell. We have the student versus the master in this one. That comes from BJ. I got to give him credit. I didn't come up with that. But McVay, Kevin O'Connell face off against each other. Stafford versus Sam Darnold. These teams are so fun to watch. The Vikings coming off of a disappointing game last week against the Lions. It felt like the score got out of hand compared to what could have been. But still, nonetheless, they got their asses handed to them on prime time. So I certainly expect them to be a little motivated. Rams, they rested the starters last week. So Stafford and Puka and Cooper and Kyron, they all got the rest that they desperately needed. So that's something to be excited about as well. But yeah, I mean, the story of this game, BJ, is going to be, of course, to your point, the two head coaches duking it out. I mean, it's going to be a battle of tacticals here. Really a game of schematics on both sides of the football, but especially the offenses and how each one can draw up plays and take advantages of these defenses. I mean, if we look at this game, there's certainly a lot of strengths and weaknesses we can talk about on both teams, but just looking at that in retrospect, compared to now, McVay versus Kevin O'Connell, this is going to be a huge game because going back, it's a shitty, cliche, but again, master versus the student, and Kevin O'Connell is going to have to kind of get creative because we've seen no matter how bad the Rams start the year, whenever they're in the playoffs, especially with Stafford and healthy wide receivers and Kyron Williams, they're able to beat anybody. So Kevin O'Connell, this team, he's going to have to rally the troops, get their confidence back coming off of that rough loss against the Lions. They'll be motivated. I certainly believe in that. So heading into this game, BJ, I mean, it's going to be these two teams, these two offensive-minded coaches duking it out. I think according to our conversations before the show, you like to give the nod here to McVay, and I think you have the Rams here.
I do.
Can you elaborate on that a little bit? Give me your gut feeling on why you.
Well, first, let me tell you this: there's no way the Rams should be in the playoffs based on the beginning of the year. There's no way that this team gets all the way to the playoffs. Their defense has been terrible all year, getting better.
It's insane.
As all these playoffs,
it's insane. Sorry to interrupt, but to your point, Beej, the people were talking about the Rams trying to trade Stafford and Cooper Kupp 4 weeks into the season.
Yeah.
They were like, oh, yeah, they just need to trade him. Get rid of him. Time to go. And look at him now. It's crazy.
I know.
Kudos to McVay. Because, I mean, he's turned that team around. A really, really rough start. But also, I mean, it's impressive what they've done. And I kind of love to see a team like that kind of give people the double birds, especially the media who's calling or trying to just make up storylines just to get clickbait. It's like trading Stafford and Kupp like that. I mean, maybe if you're halfway into the season and you're winless or you only got 1 or 2 wins, but 4 weeks into the season, they were calling for Stafford and Kupp to be traded. So mind-blowing to me, but impressive nonetheless. Sorry to interrupt you. Keep going. I didn't mean to do that.
You're fine. Yeah, these teams matched up about mid-season, and the Rams won 30-20, I believe. I will say Christian Darrisaw, their Vikings left tackle, also got hurt, and he hasn't played since in that game, which is interesting. But Yeah, the comparison that I look at is I see McVay, who's the master, with Stafford, who's, I mean, he should be a Hall of Famer. I mean, honestly, he really should. He will be. And you've got the student, Kevin O'Connell, with Sam Darnold, who this is the only year in his NFL career he's been good, which is probably a part to Kevin O'Connell's coaching. So I will say that.
Oh, it
But
absolutely is.
yeah,
Sam Darnold might very well be a great quarterback, but it's
he's
just
been in bad situations.
in bad situations, yes. But it's just proof that it really you need to be in a good situation to succeed as a quarterback in the NFL. Whether you have a phenomenal coach that can develop you, or you have playmakers that can really help you out. I mean, it's really, really hard to be a standout quarterback when you're in bad situations. So absolutely, I agree. Kevin O'Connell deserves a lot of credit in the development of Sam Darnold, but kudos to Darnold. I mean, he's responded and he's shown that he has what it takes to potentially be a starting quarterback in this league.
Yeah, absolutely. The Rams are definitely hotter at the moment. The Vikings pretty much got kicked in the penis last week against the Lions. Really interesting because the Lions are so banged up on the defensive side, and they just kind of manned them up on the outside. And said, "Come beat me one-on-one." But as far as, I think the biggest thing for me is the Vikings are, I think, the heaviest blitzing team in the league, if not they're second or third, but they're one of the top ones. And I really feel like McVay and Stafford's connection to anticipate that, to get the ball out quick and to get the ball into their playmakers' hands is going to really put them at an advantage for some really big plays against the Vikings when they bring the pressure. So
I it's going to be fun because I think that we talk about the McVay and Kevin O'Connell from an offensive perspective and how fun it'll be to watch them scheme up a game like this, but we often see, and it's an underrated component of these games, two head coaches going together like this, two offensive-minded coaches, often leads to great defensive performances. We see both of these, types of teams. Really, they don't excel on the offensive side of the ball, but they excel on the defensive side of the ball because you're kind of thinking in the same manner. It's like, oh, if it was me, I would do this. And so you relay that information to your defensive coordinator and it works. And so it's not often, but, quite a bit. We see these games in which we expect it to go over, they often go under just because having that offensive minded capability isn't just a weapon for the offense. It's a weapon for the defense and trying to get inside of the mind of what the other coach is going to do. So it's going to be a fun game, just, outside of the lines as well as in between the lines. And it's crazy because I like the Rams in this game too. I love the momentum that they have, but it's just statistically speaking, I have to point it out. I can feel like the Rams are going to steal this win, especially with the momentum the Rams have and the kind of maybe like ego check that the Vikings had. The numbers for the defensive side of the ball is really what sticks out the most. Minnesota's defense has played really, really good defense. Kudos to Brian Flores, the first overall in EPA per play allowed and fourth overall in defensive success rate. They're phenomenal at stopping the run. Phenomenal. They do give up quite a bit of yards in the passing game, but I think that's partially due to their cover zero defense where they just try to get pressure. Often leaving guys man-to-man and sometimes some bad matchups in the secondary. But their defense has played really, really well nonetheless. They give up big plays, but they do that, I think, knowingly because they're trying to generate big plays on the defense side of the ball in terms of sacks or pressures on the quarterback. So that's what you're seeing there. Defensive side of the ball for LA defense. 27th overall in EPA per play, 26th overall in success rate. And again, those numbers have improved, believe it or not, from where they were at the beginning of the year. Those numbers were both 31 overall halfway through the season. And so some slight improvement. They have a lot of young guys on the defensive side of the ball, but that's something that we just cannot ignore. They're giving up 7.3 passing yards per attempt, 241 yards in the passing game, 130 yards per game on the ground. And so the big mismatch here, Buge, is the the defenses. And so both offenses, they grade really well. LA is 14th overall in EPA per play, 7th overall in success rate. Vikings, 11th overall in EPA per play and 11th overall in success rate. I mean, it's going to be, there's going to be no shortage of offensive capability in this offense. The model has this game as basically a 1-point spread for the Vikings, 23-24 almost if you round up. So while I do like the Rams and I do feel confident about the Rams just because of their momentum, they have both of their elite wide receivers healthy. Kyron Williams is going to be good to go. It's just hard to ignore the stats on the defensive side of the ball for the LA defense and especially the Minnesota defense as well. It's a matchup advantage. And so, it's just, they got Matthew Stafford. They got 2 elite wide receivers. It's like, man, I think they could still get around that to some degree, especially with all of the man defense that Brian Flores plays. Like Matthew Stafford is very well smart enough and capable enough to perform really, really well against the pressure. I mean, they have the highest blitz rate at 36%. Minnesota's defense does. So I think that, that's also an underrated component of the game is how well will Matthew Stafford play against a team that's absolutely going to get after him in terms of the pressure. Historically, he's played really well, but sometimes it gets to him. He's very prone to throwing interceptions. He has a high interception rate. He averages almost 1 interception per game, believe it or not. So just something to note there. I know I just went on a ramble there, but I do like the Rams from a gut feel perspective, but I don't want to ignore some of the stats that favor the Vikings in this game. And that could, be very well the reason that they win. So throwing that out there, just going to let everybody fester on that.
Yeah. One more thing I have to say beforehand is, before we get off here, is that, of course, we have to go based off the stats of the season, right? But those stats are in the past and they're not what's going to happen. They're not going to predict exactly what's going to happen in this game. And I love what you said. I could totally see McVay going to his defensive coordinator and saying, look, I taught Kevin how to do this. This is what they're going to do.
Yeah.
And so they're ready for him. So I love that in this individual matchup. And it's definitely, well, I would say my second favorite game on the slate because I really like that Bucs game. But it's good.
Nobody leans into the stats more than I do. Nobody tries to read more into the stats than I do. But I'm telling you right now, the playoff football is different. There's you got to learn how to read between the lines and understand that there's an element to this game that goes beyond just the numbers. And so I think that's kind of what the Rams are here. They're fully healthy on the offensive side of the ball, outside of an injury to Blake Corum. And given that alone, no matter how bad the defense is, they're going to be in a game, And so it's going to be a fun one. I'm really excited about this one. It's going to be awesome. Playoff alone, going to be awesome. We have some phenomenal teams. I would say 4 that are arguably, going to win the Super Bowl. More than capable of winning the Super Bowl. Phenomenal offense, phenomenal defense. So a lot to be excited about over the next few weeks. Guys, we appreciate you joining us on Wildcard Weekend Breakdown. We will absolutely be back here next week to break down the next game. So appreciate you guys, and we'll talk to you guys later.